I will say something about recognizability of encyclopedia. That is the possibility of recognition of encyclopedias as scientific publications and encyclopedia publishers as academic publishers. Namely, in Brussels, we have already started this discussion on the possibility of acknowledging professionally edited encyclopedias as scientific output, which is often not the case. Therefore, there is an increasing lack of incentive in the academic community to collaborate on such projects, and this collaboration of contributors from the academic community is vital for our credibility and hence our sustainability. One of the most important elements that actually influences publication performance within the academic community is a research evaluation system. So I will give an example of Croatia, where, for example, there are some evaluation procedures that take into account or at least mention encyclopedias. For example, the annual subsidies of the Ministry of Science and Education for publishing scientific books. They include also reference works, that is encyclopedias, lexicons, dictionaries, and handbooks, and so on. In the evaluation of research project proposals at Croatian Science Foundation, research results can be also published in encyclopedic and lexicon entries. However, on the individual level, encyclopedias are not mentioned specifically anywhere except for some procedures take into consideration, for example, for professional books or publication genres that are discipline specific, such as dictionaries in philology, as well as popularization activities. But as we know, researchers inevitably need to adapt their scholarly activities to the professional advancement requirements. Therefore, they can be unmotivated to participate as authors or editors in the creation of encyclopedias. On the European level, there is an increasing amount of initiatives and documents that demand the reform of research assessment. So I will give just a brief overview of those documents. They are all aligned with the first one mentioned on the slide, that is European Commission report towards the reform of the research assessment system, which was published in November 2021. In the Council of European Union conclusions on research assessment and implementation of open science, there are some keywords that we need to focus on. They call for recognizing bibliodiversity, multilingualism, and the acknowledgement of all scientific output. Bibliodiversity initially referred to the cultural diversity applied to the world of books. It actually refers to a diversity of languages, scientific areas, publication formats, and actors. According to these conclusions, the goals should be to strengthen capacities for academic publishing and scholarly communication of all research outputs beyond publications, also data sets, software, codes, methodologies, patents, and so on. What is also mentioned is that reaching non-academic audiences may require dedicated publishing formats written in less technical language. The background for multilingualism is the Helsinki Initiative on Multilingualism in Scholarly Communication, which highlights the importance of native languages in the communication of science and in the interaction with society. As for the open access mentioned here, I will refer to it a bit later. Newly launched agreement on reforming research assessment sets goals and priorities on how to reform assessment practices. So this document calls for the recognition of diverse outputs, research practices and activities that maximize the quality and impact of research and rewarding open science practices. So there are actually three elements here that I consider important for encyclopedia publishers: diversity of outputs, impact of research, and openness. As for the diversity of outputs, There is no specific mention of encyclopedias in this document, but the assessment practices should take into consideration full range of research outputs that goes beyond journal publication and irrespective of the language. And also tasks such as science communication, public outreach activities, and interaction with society, which contribute to the societal impact of research. I think that every scientist has this inherent drive to produce knowledge that would matter not only, that would be important and recognized not only within the academic community, but that would matter to the society as a whole. However, it is of utmost importance that this creation of impact is adequately evaluated. Encyclopedias could also be included in the recognized, or encyclopedistics could be included in these recognized activities for dissemination of scientific results within the community and hence for creating the societal impact. Namely, encyclopedias act as a perfect medium for systematization and dissemination of scientifically verified knowledge, as well as for popularization of results of scientific research. With regard to the aforementioned open science and open access, it has been on the agenda for many years. So there is a considerable number of ongoing initiatives and policies in this area worldwide. One of the main goals of open science is to increase the dissemination and impact of scientific research results. Taking open access into account in the assessment research, which has become mandatory in many cases, might be important for us, as a great deal of our encyclopedias are actually freely accessible. So we are aligned with ongoing policies in this respect. For example, in the context of the recent French presidency of the European Union, second French plan for open science was published, which calls for scientific publishing involving a plurality of editorial stakeholders, formats, and languages. And what I've found most interesting in this document is that it actually mentions encyclopedias, namely in order to extend the global influence of French research publications. In partnership with Wikimedia France, they will encourage the use of findings from French research in the global collaborative Wikipedia encyclopedia. And also their definition of bibliodiversity, which says that the concept also covers diversity of editorial formats, journals, books, encyclopedias, and also languages. All these documents are actually the result of the long-lasting efforts of the scientific community involved in research on research in various aspects that try to point out for many years that evaluation procedures should take into consideration the diversity in research output in different disciplines, since in most countries not all the relevant forms of outputs are rewarded adequately in evaluation systems, including genres used for the societal interaction. One of the results of these efforts is the creation of the Register Academic Book Publishers. It's still with password-protected website. It's a global and multilingual register that contains more than 8,000 publishers from around the world. And this project, which is in progress, tries to identify academic publishers all around the world and the diversity of this landscape, which support the research quality standards in their peer review and publishing practices. I think that it's important, actually, that encyclopedia publishers get listed in similar registers, and because this also gives credibility and recognition as academic publishers, which is important in evaluation procedures. I'm not sure how this applies to all of us here, but for example, Croatian Encyclopedia, it's an online edition with its ISBN identifier. And also our institute publishes a wide range of books and editions. But I also wanted to mention one of the most prominent directory of open access books, the platform that enables discoverability of open access books, monographs, and edited collections for the time being. So it's quite limited. And it also delivers global certification for research funders and libraries. And to conclude, I think that three components of the ongoing research assessment policies that could be important for encyclopedias and encyclopedia publishers: acknowledgement of the diversity of scientific outputs, both in formats and languages, providing open access to publications, and contributing to the societal impact of research. So these are the key elements that could contribute to the acknowledgement of encyclopedias as a valuable academic output. So I think, well, that we should definitely seize the momentum which is going on the European level, and let us be heard, and of course we can discuss how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. I will take your role as a moderator now, and will ask, is there any comments or questions regarding Natasha's? Niels, please.
Thank you, Natasha. I think this is important, because if our authors are not happy, then we are not happy. And if the authors are not recognized, then they won't work for us in the same way as they do today. So I think it's very good that you work on this on the European level. And maybe this is something that we also could make a letter of, from this group of people here to the Commission, saying that it's important that researchers are acknowledged for the impact they and for the help to society published in encyclopedias. So I think something like a letter on behalf of all of us that go forward to the Commission, that this is to be recognized, not only publishing in Science and Nature, but also publishing for the benefit of society. So thank you very much for your initiative.
Okay, thank you. And well, to address it to European Commission or somebody else, I don't know, we can think about it. Yeah. Any more comments?
How coordinated is this, like on a European level?
But this agreement now, I think that it is signed by 400 organizations around Europe. So these are research performing organizations, both research funding organizations, I think a variety of different institutions. I'm not sure about individuals, because some of these documents were also supported on the individual level. But I think it's a very, how to say, large movement across Europe. So to just walk away from metrics, bibliometrics, and we researchers know how difficult it is actually to be evaluated in this way, and it's actually giving as I said, the emphasis on the societal impact a lot, and of course openness. Open science now is a key word to anything. Open access to publications as well. So most of us, I think except for the Swedish National Encyclopedia, are actually freely accessible, so it's also our advantage.
Because I think, at least from what I've learned, it's funding for research varies quite a bit across Europe, but it seems like it's getting more standardized in a way. I think
worse and worse. Oh. Sorry, I didn't hear.
That it gets a little bit more standardized. I mean, we've been trying to get publication points for our encyclopedia for some years.
I know, yeah. We talked about it.
We have not succeeded because everyone hates the publishing point system because it's too big and too complex, and at least Norway seems to be moving away from the sort of counting and publishing points.
I know, for a long time. Norway is a role model in this respect, like
we invented the worst system that you could possibly
Somebody also
get,
thinks that way, but the others are very, impressed by the Norwegian model, which takes into account a variety of factors, not only Web of Science and Scopus, like in Croatia, for example. But okay, we can.
No, but I think it's important for the encyclopedias to be recognized as scientific output, because it means that a junior professor that writes an article for us could have it sort of counted as academic work that would count towards becoming a professor later at some stage, it would make everything a lot easier for all of us, I think.
To find contributors, that is also of vital importance. Okay. Naya.
Thank you. I just want to caution against placing too much hope on the Commission in this context, because the EU has very little competence in terms of research. That's all in the member states. So I think that you probably have to. There is funding, of course, but it's just to be cautious.
Okay.
I think it's not just up to nation states, but it's also up to universities. And different universities, for instance, have different policy. Like in Latvian case, University of Latvia, which is the biggest institution of higher learning, has included certain, it gives certain points when elections are, you can just add your numbers you have earned as a writer for encyclopedia. But there are other universities, they are not interested yet. So it's not national level. I would say it's university level.
But in Croatia, it still is a national level. Yeah, it's a national level mostly. Yeah. So it depends on the countries. But these documents and agreements should actually involve all the actors, both the local ones, national ones, regional ones. It doesn't matter on which level this evaluation is performed. Yeah. Okay. So we can continue the discussion later.
We will continue discussion after the lunch, when Walters will also have his own presentation about the similar topic, and we could discuss even further the topic that Natasha began, and we can also discuss after the lunch the paper our Danish colleague gave us, this open letter, and the things connected with it to wrap up with that our conference.
Dear friends, are you ready for my 2-hour presentation? Only 2 hours. Only 2 hours. Okay, I'll try to do my best. But actually, in the title I have question and question mark, and I have more questions than answers, but I think for myself, I have answers to those questions, and probably somehow, this presentation might logically conclude our discussions for 2 days. So, what's next? What we should do next? What's the next step? Where we should meet? When we should meet? And so on. But I was thinking of encyclopedias, and I remember, was it 2018 February in Brussels, when we really started the very first talk about encyclopedias coming together. Was in a pub in Brussels. Remember, Eric? And now there are many years already behind, and we have certainly much better knowledge of who we are and what we want and how to do things. And actually the first initiatives are here already. The Danish initiative, excellent. This is a very good start. And being scientist, at least in past, so I'm used to kind of analyze different issues, having in mind context as well. So, and in this, for this question, what's next? I was thinking of probable obstacles we might have, or rather privileges we might have organizing something, working together. And those differences include different histories of, we are really kaleidoscopic collection of encyclopedias. However, we have things which are similar. I think that the most important difference is paywall, no paywall encyclopedias, which is just the reason why we should organize next conference in the encyclopedia which has paywall, just to see the limits, how far they can go. But joking aside, of course, we have different legal status, different institutional status. National Library of National Encyclopedia of Latvia is a part of National Library. Lithuanians are following our path and are becoming part of library, but Norwegians, Danes are consortiums. And then Georgia is part of Academy of Science, and many of your encyclopedias are related to Academy of Science, and well, different encyclopedias like Italians and French who are not present. They're private institutions. Britannica is private institution. So this I think it might create some obstacles, but this is not a big thing. It could be overcome, and if we have really similar ideas and we really want to work together. What is different also is that I have a feeling we have different ambitions and different resources, but again, it's not a big thing. And what makes us different also is that we are focusing mostly on our language speakers, of course, except Britannica, and this is why Britannica is special. Britannica is in India, in Canada, and everywhere else. But National Encyclopedia of Latvia is either in Latvia or in Latvian diaspora. Of course, in thinking about future, we might use more artificial intelligence mechanisms to automatically translate texts, and probably Latvian school children won't notice they are reading actually Danish encyclopedia in Latvian language. We are reading, sometimes Russians are very active in translating different sites, and children don't notice it's actually RU. Address comes from RU. And it's translated in a very bad language, but still it's in Latvian. So. But we have similar things as well. I hope we share the same goals, same aims. And I'm quite convinced we have very similar basic work principles, methodologies, approach to the texts. They might differ, but in principle, in general, they are very similar. And we come from the same area, more or less, Europe, Northern America. And we represent, I think, quite obviously, very similar set of values. I'm not going to repeat those values, but definitely most of our countries are members of EU or trying to get to EU. So it's a good indicator, or not trying to get into EU at all, but still we share those things, and it makes cooperation much easier. Just imagine if we could have Chinese encyclopedia, which could be totally controlled by Beijing Communist Party in Beijing. So it could be difficult. Is it needed? I don't believe in such organizations. United Nations is one example. It's not working. Zurab knows best. Is it working or not? Difficult question. So I prefer, if we would like to reach certain results, companies should probably be smaller but like-minded people and willing to work. And why do we need this cooperation? Well, the first thing which comes to my mind is, and when we met Norwegians, we met others, we realized how few we are in our countries, and nobody understands us. And we have no one to talk to, actually, on the same level, because there are editors and people who are dealing with books and different sites, but not encyclopedists. So basically, we need this international environment. We need, well, discussions, projects, ideas, exchange experience, and after all, we need also socializing. And socializing is very important. It's not just for encyclopedias, it's for mutual understanding and friendship. And friendship is a good thing. Well, there are many more reasons for cooperation, but I mention also financial support, which might be easier to achieve working together. There are fundings, not just European Union, but various possibilities to get money, and big money comes when there are big projects. And big projects is easier to create working together, particularly because our organizations are quite small. Probably we are the smallest ones, but well, SNL is, well, 15 people. There are 20, 30 people, but not like in 80s, there was 120 or 200 people. It's a past. So we are few in numbers, and we need, in order to get extra money, and extra money is needed particularly for technologies. And technologies are changing quickly, and you know better than I do. So, and our company, which is just improving our site, they are always complaining, you should do it faster, change faster. It's just getting old, particularly mobile phone. This design for mobile phone is changing all the time, and so yes, support. And also, I would like to mention Ukrainian case, and I have no idea yet how, but I feel we should somehow find a way to support Ukraine. They are quite proud people, they don't ask anything, but I think this would be a nice gesture somehow to think about real support, not just moral support, but real support. And third thing is well, creation of permanent institutionalized networking system. That is an association or society or union or trade union or whatever, which exists all the time. There is somebody who is responsible for this, and this institution could represent all the member encyclopedias. And it's for practical reasons, it's very good. And we are talking about the European Union, European Commission. It's really good to have one voice. But one voice means we should have organization, some kind of organization, which could not only assist in looking for funding, but also could somehow supervise developments and just supervise what's going on in every country and have realistic and empirically well-based arguments on everything. Then I come to cooperation, types of cooperations, and I'm just very quickly, this is almost the very end of my presentation, short presentation. There might be three ways of cooperating. First of all, formal organization, association. This association was in mind when we were talking about European encyclopedias in 2018. But again, it's very difficult. I think we need association, definitely. This is a step forwards. But I'm not sure about everyone. Probably some people don't care or don't think we don't need anything formal. I don't know. But I think if there will be 4 or 5 encyclopedias willing to participate in association, we should do it. And there might be alternatives to the European. We could have Northern European as a kind of testing ground, how it works or not works. But I think it's technically it's not a very complicated thing to create association. But the alternatives, there are also alternatives, and one is free-flowing, truly informal networking. We do whatever we want. We just socialize and discuss things and sometimes come together. No obligations, nothing. No membership fee, nothing, just... and then, of course, there could be something in between. formal association and this free-flowing networking. Conferences are regular and, well, annual, for instance, and the organizers take care of everything during the 1 year. So just, it's kind of not association. Poor organizers just communicate, ask questions. So 3 options, and but I have feeling most of people would agree to participate in association probably, but I realize we cannot create association right now. Probably half of encyclopedias could make this decision and have thought before about association, but half of you should come back home and ask somebody, is it okay if we join this association? And then we should think of some kind of plan or tactics, strategic issues about fees, about formal things, which is not a big thing. It's easy, but it should be done before a formal decision is made. And I think very crucial thing for this is a conference and conferences. And this is already second conference, and we had discussions here. How often should we have conferences? I think annual conference, every year 1 conference in different place. And I think the conference could be also a meeting place for association. So I think it comes along and it's useful, and it's and encyclopedias are interested in. So in Brussels, how many encyclopedias did we have in Brussels? Was it 17? But not all of them were encyclopedias. There were some countries which were representing would-be encyclopedias. Yeah, like Moldova and Bosnia. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, and now we have 10, 11. Yeah, okay, 11. Let's say 11. Yeah, and then I think it's decent number, and I would suggest. Well, I always like to be clear about everything, and I'm not clear about the status of encyclopedias in Europe in every country. Well, those who are present or were present in Brussels, we know the situation, but I still am not sure about Greeks. Northern Macedonia, for instance.
They should have come.
They should come. They have. Okay.
No, yeah, but at the last moment they had.
Yeah, and Poles. Poland is a big, important country with a huge encyclopedic tradition and still functioning universal encyclopedia online. And they are not here, and it's a shame. And I'll take care of Warsaw, and I think I'll go there and just take them by hand to place wherever we are going next year. So we should somehow decide on a kind of investigative team, which is just do some in-depth research on every country, also including countries which don't have encyclopedias, but someday they might have. What's the attitude of Ministry of Education, for instance, or Culture on creation Finnish encyclopedia or Estonian encyclopedia? Yeah, and but again, if we would have association could do this job and just to explore every country, every country in Europe, so we could have really clear picture what's going on there, and this could be a very good starting point. Also, not just to develop our encyclopedias, but just try to find the ways to suggest them to create new ones. We have various examples. We have long existing encyclopedias like SNL, who has just started very quickly and very impressively, and we have encyclopedias who started from nothing. So we could offer options for different countries if they are interested in to spend some money on truthful information, after all. So, yeah, well, I think we can discuss the things. The last picture is a result of this cooperation. We had, Erik has already mentioned, we had series of seminars between Norwegians and Latvians, one seminar in Oslo and 2 seminars in Latvia, and every seminar was 4 days, 4 days spending together. It's like we felt like family, or everyone knows everyone, and it's very nice. And I wish we could have seminars for every encyclopedia and organize exchange. And we are thinking in Riga, we are going to participate in the Erasmus exchange. So if any of your institutions are eligible for Erasmus exchange, we would like to go to your place, and we will welcome you to Riga. And Erasmus is easy. Well, it costs nothing, and just really good way of exchanging experts and experiences and so on. So yeah, this is a Kuldīga seminar a year ago in Latvia, and Norwegians and Latvians are there in the countryside just discussing encyclopedic issues for 24 hours, almost. But yeah, this is my, as I told Bruno, I have questions but not answers. So, well, I have answers for myself, but I cannot answer for you. So what do you think of association and developments? Yeah, please, yes.
Thank you, Valdis, for taking this up so directly and putting up the question, what's next? If you could have the slides where you had the 3 options you point upon. I think this is very timely, and I think it would really be a pity if we just leave tomorrow or this afternoon and don't see each other, and we just haven't thought about what's next. And our proposal from the Danish side was, because we are impatient and we think we have a good case, and we are, as Erik also was so kind to say, we're ambitious. So why just not start? Just informally, and just go ahead and say, we are here, gathered here, 1011 Encyclopedia. We are now forming the European Associations of Encyclopedia. Anyone who wants to be part of it could be so. We will even be so direct, so we would like to propose for our president, our chair of the association, our host, Bruno. And then we can just start, and what do we need? We don't need to pay anything, because we help each other, so we don't need to have any fee. We just need a homepage. If you don't have a homepage, you don't exist. We already had material from the good conference in Brussels. We have the material from this conference here. Then people can go back if they have to ask their government, they have to ask, and then they can go back to our president, Bruno, if he accepts our wishes. And then he could then put a list of member lists as we slowly come on. And then we'll find a host for the next conference. That could be Erik in Norway. It's nice in Norway in the spring. I'm just suggesting. So I'm just trying to suggest something, because I'm impatient. I'm an older man now, and I'd like to see something happening. And we could, of course, sit down and we could write long papers. And I've done that in my former time. It takes lots of time. We don't need that. We already have this informal way of working, and it works, and it's good. And then it could slowly grow if we need that. But I think it's working. So let's keep it simple. That would really be my advice. So two suggestions. One, that we don't leave each other before that we agree upon doing something. It could be the name of the European Association of Encyclopedias. I suggest Bruno. I don't know if he wants to, but I think he's a great man, and he has a good organization. Maybe his director also will allow him to, and his assistant director. and then maybe we should agree upon meet some other place in 1.5 years from now. Because if we don't do that, we will have difficulty to go to the Commission. We need to have something, because we could not go there as a Danish encyclopedia alone. We need to be something a little more. And yeah, so sorry to be so direct, but I'm patient and ambitious.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. I think it's really good that you put up those 3, and it really helps structure the thinking. I'd say that there's a major difference between an association and a network, because an association has a different purpose. It has a structure, it has decision-making structures, maybe it has a budget and a secretariat, it has statutes, it works towards something, it has membership requirements. It has the possibility to accept new members, to ask members to leave if they don't follow the statutes. So it works towards a purpose that would be set in the statutes, whereas a network could, organize conferences like this one, which has been extremely useful for me as a new employee of the Norwegian Encyclopedia. But I think that's the question I would add to the list. What is the purpose of the organized cooperation?
I would ask a single encyclopedia would probably say something because it concerns everyone. Please.
Okay, perhaps the first step should be not entirely informal. So we choose the name European Encyclopedia Network, not our association, network. So we don't have, that way we don't need to register formally, legally in any of the countries, which could bring problems, because what would mean association registered in Croatia, in Latvia or in Norway, we don't know. It's very complicated. We would have to have accounting expenses and so on. So we stay on the rather informal level of network, but we, during following weeks, draw a kind of charter of some seminal values, theses, intentions, and then we each other signed this charter, like joining the network. And that's for a start. And that's a way of organization for preparing the next conference, for signing the letters such as these, not individually, but as network, and then again individually under the network. So network as such probably can't apply for any funding, but wouldn't have any expenses as network. All the expenses would be individual. And of course, if we decide on following conference, perhaps all the participants could cover a part of their expenses. Of course, even today, you all had to cover your own expenses to a part, so it would be we are accustomed to it. So let's start perhaps with something which could be drafted via email and then named like European Encyclopedia Association, and perhaps network. Sorry, yeah, of course. Okay, the network definitely. And then should the network have a kind of formal representative or not? Okay, it's circulated, or like for a start a mailing list, but with the same kind of decision-making process. Okay, we can see that, but I think if we decide that our first step be informal association, it could be a bridge too far, too large step for us, I'm afraid. Only unless you have in mind to register this association in your country and to administer it. And
no, okay, I have nothing in mind. There's.
I also think it's a good idea to do a network thing first, because it's to discuss like membership categories and who should be allowed to join, and what do we do when the Russian encyclopedia knocks on the door, and those kind of things would be good to have thought about. So I think a network is a good idea. What we actually need the most is just contact lists and contact information and who works at the different encyclopedias and who to invite to conferences, and is there really an encyclopedia in Greece or is it not? You know, those kind of quite simple overview things. I think that's maybe the most useful thing that we did when we organized the conference in Brussels, was to give everyone a list of telephone numbers and websites, because none of us knew each other. And then we met, and it was possible to start cooperating and talking together. So I think that's the most important, and I think it's a good first step. And we would really like to invite all of you to Oslo at some stage, and I'm hoping that during this session we can discuss like how often we're going to meet and in what format, but maybe a little bit later. Or do anyone want to say anything more about the network?
Bruno, well, is there somebody else who would like to say something on a form of association? Naya, do you have any ideas now? It's Bruno, probably here we come to the decision making, and you are a chair. So somehow, just if we have to make decisions, so we have to vote. So please, you are official here.
Obviously, in my overriding ambition, I would be flattered and to become a sort of a chair of this grand network.
But you have been always
association of encyclopedias. but there always come buts, no buts, as Shakespeare said. But if, as I gather, it's more practical to begin with network rather than a formal association, as I gather from the intervention of my director, who is in fact my boss, maybe then we should begin as a network and become association in a, let's say, if we agree that we should form some sort of a European network of encyclopedias as a sort of a step towards association, towards a more formal kind of networking. And then, as I gather, Philip took the pleasure that he will write some sort of a charter to then send to all of the participants via email a sort of a short statement, let's say, that can be a sort of a basis for a more formal association. That's one question, and I think that question can be resolved rather easily. The second one is, as you, Walter said, you think that we should meet at least, not at least, but we should meet once a year. We planned that when we met in Bristol 3 years ago. We planned that we'll have a conference here in Zagreb in 2020. Yeah. But then, unfortunately, Corona came, and we postponed it for a year, then another year. So we are finally here after 3 years of gap. But if we agree that we should meet once a year, I think that our Norwegian colleagues and friends who will happily host in Oslo, I think that maybe the next year for them is too much a short span.
Why?
And we should decide what format of the conference will be. If there will be this kind of a more general conference with the heads of encyclopedia, or it could be a more specific kind of a conference, more like a working conference, of that conference in which there is no need that big heads participate, but we could send some editors or something like that to discuss some more specific things like, I don't know, layout department, illustration department, or something like that, or topics about, or discussion about some topics. We should decide it. I have no thing against holding a conference each year. So, but then if we are going to hold a conference already next year, as this is early October, then we should decide, shall we do that also in the fall of the next year, or maybe late spring, and where will it be? So there has to be some sacrifice, in which Croatia is fortunately spared. I suppose, I think. I hope.
Sure. We like here. We like here.
To decide.
We enjoy your hospitality. And
thank you very much.
Would like to enjoy it next year as well.
But you know how they say in film, remake is almost always worse than original. Only Godfather Part 2 is better than Godfather Part 1. So we should decide today, obviously, where to meet next. And then we should decide if we are going with this kind of a network that will, by the, let's say, next year, become association. If we found out how can that, where there should be a registered association and all those legal things that follow those kind of thinking, yes.
To make also the special panels, like layout panel, illustration panel. Maybe also we could have a natural sciences panel or a common European history panel as a step towards perhaps the exchange of those kind of information and text that are not so much country specific.
Yeah. I think the content. Yeah, the content of conference, it's rather easy to decide, and if Eric is organizing in Oslo, so most probably Norwegians will come with suggestions on what will be the topics, and I think panels or seminar or whatever. I think everything is possible. Just. We just have the name conference, but under this name could be everything. So we slowly are moving to the concrete things already. Next year, Oslo. No, it's a question. It's a question.
Can we just do this as a little vote? Because I'm a little drawn between thinking that next year is too soon, but would the ones here today, would you like to meet once a year, or should we aim at every second year?
Once a year. I'm for once a year.
Every second year, it's no, but it's like meet and greet, you know. Always the same thing, you know. We are just exchanging our experiences in a broad sense. But if we want to be more like constructive and concrete, then I think that we should somehow exchange more often, even via the Zoom or whatever, you know, that we should maybe start this stronger cooperation, in a sense. That's my opinion.
So
every year.
You say
every year? Yeah, according to me, at least.
Although there is no complete agreement among Croatia delegation, so as I said, there is too complicated things. There is pros for once a year, and there is a pros for every second year. I think we can even have, let's say, meeting once a year, but not in this kind of a format. We can have a working meeting, let's say every 2 years, and then more general meeting every 2 years. So we meet to satisfy the Walters once a year, but not in the same kind of a format, not in the same kind of a more, let's say, formal. If we agree to found an association, let's say in a year's time, we can do to combine both to try to combine both things, to have everybody satisfied in a typical EU way, or everybody at least equally non-satisfied.
Yeah.
I think I don't have any voting rights, but you mentioned the typical EU way would actually be to meet at least twice a year. Depends on the level, of course, but I just wanted to highlight that the birthday of Diderot is the 5th of October. So that could be, I mean, that fits very well with this gathering. Of course, it almost fits. So I just wanted to say that we also had a discussion last time about his birthday, and that could be, we could elevate his birthday to Diderot. We could elevate his birthday to the International Encyclopedia Day.
Maybe next year, which we could use. Yeah, but okay. Do anyone object to meeting next year? And I would like to invite you to Oslo. We should probably then introduce a bit more sort of practical things and a bit more low level, like on a practical level, like actual content. I'm guessing instead of being on a very sort of political or high up level. Okay, I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about this later on, like informally today. But that we'll meet next year in Oslo unless someone protests.
So nobody supports my proposal for Malmö.
If someone else wants to organize this, we're more than happy to.
Yes, so it's done. Easy. So I can sit down.
Just to sum up, we have now decided to make a network. The creations are like the informal secretariat for it. Okay. Yes. And we will host next year's meeting.